You're listening to Out of the Box, a place for marketers to get inspired, get going, and break out of the box.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jess Overton, and you're listening to Out of the Box, the marketing podcast exploring out-of-the-box approaches to marketing and growth. Today, I'm joined by Greg Turtle, head of growth at What 3 Words, a mobile app dedicated to allowing people to identify any location in the world based on 3 words. A super, super interesting concept. But before we get into what 3 Words actually is, Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, thank you. So I've been in the industry now for around 15 years. Actually started off in more like broader ad buying, TV buying specifically in my agency days. Made the switch to Sky TV, big pay TV platform here in Europe, where I was focused on growing revenues for their OTT and VOD products, very kind of video focused. And from there, I made the switch over to TikTok, which was kind of a logical move, I guess, into the app world and social media space because it was so like video native. So my video background helped me a lot there. Even though I was only there for about a year and a half, we did a lot in that time. It's a very fast moving company, as you can imagine. Learned an awful lot about app growth and different kind of techniques to growing rapidly. And I've taken some of that into my latest role here at What 3 Words. Again, just been here only about a year now. Loving it and really looking forward to the next few years and an exciting future at the company.
Fantastic. So I think hopefully we'll get into some of those things that you took from TikTok, because I think as TikTok is an exploding platform for growth in a lot of different spaces, whether it be app, e-commerce, whatever, I think there's a lot that we could go into there. But first, I'm not sure that everybody will be familiar with what 3 Words actually is. So can you tell us a little bit about the company, the concept?
Of course, yeah. So What 3 Words, we're primarily a consumer-facing app, but we also have a website that works functionally exactly the same as the app does. And what we've done is we've divided the whole world into 3 meter by 3 meter squares, which is roughly the size of a parking space. And given each one of those squares its own unique 3-word address using 3 random words from the dictionary. That could be a dictionary across multiple different languages, but we'll touch on that, I think, a little bit later. So what that's given then is the whole world now has an address, effectively. Wherever you are, you could be in the middle of nowhere, even in the middle of the ocean or the Antarctic, or I suppose more relevantly in the middle of like a forest or something like more local to you. And you'll know and be able to give an address to anyone to give them your location. That obviously has a lot of particularly important use cases, not least emergency services. If you have an accident somewhere, you're not sure where you are, there's now an app which will help you communicate to anyone exactly where you are. But you can bring that back into like more day-to-day use cases as well. If you think about delivery and the prevalency of delivery services now, and like rapid delivery becoming more an important thing. A lot of people still live in addresses which are difficult to find. Delivery companies are always wasting time in that last mile trying to locate individual properties. And then there's a lot of other use cases that you can think of by just being a lot more precise about where you are or where you're trying to meet somebody. So that's us. We're effectively a layer that can be placed over other map companies as well. So our app will throw through to something like Google Maps or Apple Maps where you can navigate to that location. And we partner with a lot of big companies now who are taking our technology to and building it into their products. So people like DHL, DPD, Every, which are all like big delivery companies here in Europe. They're now integrated. You can now pass your What 3 Words address onto those companies, and they'll know what you're talking about, and they'll know how to find you.
So was getting the B2B piece a function of sort of succeeding in the B2C area, or are they sort of 2 different independent business activities that can coexist without one necessarily succeeding before the other?
No, it's definitely a symbiotic ecosystem. Without the other won't succeed. So we make money via our B2B partnerships. We don't monetize our consumers directly. We make money by companies like the ones I just mentioned, taking our technology. Another big vertical would be car companies building us into their sat navs. We make money that way. And I think, there's the obvious like consumer to consumer use cases for what three words. Like I mentioned, telling someone where you are if you're trying to meet someone in a park, or
Sure.
you're trying to tell someone, oh, hey, do you want to come around my house? It's a little bit hard to find. Come here. But they're not necessarily going to be as regular as they could be if we start adding a lot of other businesses into the mix. So having more places to insert your three-word address, it'll just help like give users more use cases and ultimately more touch points to engage with what three words. So yeah, without the consumers, we don't get the businesses to sign the deals. And to be honest, without the business deals, we struggle to give the consumers enough use cases to really make what three words a daily app.
Got it. So I think the business case for the B2B is pretty clear to me. If I was and I'm not a sales guy, but if I was, I think I could formulate the pitch pretty quickly if I walked into DHL's headquarters and had to sell them the product. It occurs to me though that that's maybe a little bit more of a difficult sell when we're talking about the consumer. So talk to me about your approach to growth for what three words on the consumer side.
Sure. First off, we don't really have much of a business competitive set. I'd say there's not really many people doing what we're doing, or at least not not in the same way. Other companies have used codes for like very local addressing, but using the words and making it much more easily communicatable, we're pretty unique in that space. The biggest kind of, I guess, barrier that we have to growth has just been the tools that we all use in our day-to-day life to get around this problem of addresses not being very good. You'll have like a series of sentences that you might say to your friend about how to find your house. It's you turn right at the post box, it's next to the house that's pink, and you'll kind of just find these ways of getting around this annoying problem. So that's the challenge that we've really had. And I think on the face of it, what three words is not too difficult to understand. The 3 meter by 3 meter concept, we can put that into our advertising quite simply, and people can kind of understand. Oh, okay, this is a new way of looking at addressing. I don't quite get it, but I get it enough to want to download it and check it out. The challenge that we then have is trying to remind users of moments in their day-to-day life where they're experiencing a what three words moment. You're broken down on the side of the road. You don't know exactly. You're on the M6 or something in the UK, but you don't know exactly where you are. You call up the AA, and they ask you where you are. You might not in that exact moment because maybe it's a difficult situation. You forget that what three words is there and is a solution. So it's really the challenge for us now is to make what three words like more ingrained in people's everyday life, and know that there's an app that was going to help in like these situations where previously you would always just get around it using those tools that people have innately. So when it comes to tools for growth, and I think I might talk about it a little bit later, it's not enough for us certainly just to get the install. We need to keep that ongoing communication going with our users. We need to keep onboarding new businesses and giving them more reasons to use what three words, but it's vital for us to communicate that those relationships exist. And yeah, that happens in our online retargeting, but we're also doing that increasingly now in our TV advertising as well.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to jump into that because I know that you guys have been a leader for media for equity deals, right? So I think it's an interesting space that I haven't really gotten that far into. So talk to me and talk to our listeners as a wider group about what exactly media for equity means and who it's for.
Sure. So in the early years of What Three Words, we grew mainly through big PR stories. We got some excellent press coverage globally, frankly, in the early days, especially with the emergency services use case that we have.
Mm-hmm.
We also did a lot of paid digital advertising as well, Facebook and Google, and the traditional places where you do this. And we did see a lot of growth. We got a lot of installs. Quite rapidly, but we more recently we realized that we need to take this message broader. For what three words to really succeed, we need hundreds of millions of users in the long run, and there's only so far that paid digital advertising can get you. So we knew that we needed to add TV to our toolkit, and we kind of realized that we're a company which was attracting a lot of investors at the time anyway. A lot of people are interested in us, seeing that we're growing rapidly and can see that, we may have something really quite significant here. So we managed to start conversations with some media companies who were interested in our solution. And I guess it was a tough time for them. The pandemic was on, ad revenues were down, and so a lot of companies had inventory available, and an opportunity for an investment. And when you think about it from their side, they're not really giving too much away. They're not paying for anything. They just give us their airtime. So that's what a media for equity deal is. So ITV in the UK, Channel 4 in the UK, ProSieben in Germany, Times of India in India. They're now investors in What Three Words, but instead of giving us cash, they've given us media credits or space in their content to go and advertise. And it's a mutually beneficial deal, really. Like, they have space available. They're looking to kind of diversify their revenue. And it was great for us because, we're always looking to take investment, but at this time, or certainly at that time, most of the investment that we're going to take, we're going to put it into broadcast marketing anyway. So why not do this deal? And the bit that benefits us, I guess, is that we then have this direct relationship with these media owners. Quite often we get good rates with them as well because they're now partners, and that's kind of all part of the deal. So yeah, we're going direct to source. We get great discounts, and we now have this like ongoing partner, and hopefully it's going to be beneficial for both of us in the long run. And yeah, it's been fantastic for us. It's given us a real quick way to get access to TV. And in some markets like India, it's a difficult market for us. We're UK based. It's a complex market. It's not really like Western Europe. And having that relationship with the Times of India, the experts in the market, and knowing, what to do, like kind of how best to utilize their portfolio, has been invaluable.
I guess that you had to do some pretty significant qualification to get to the correct partners, right? Because you wouldn't want to sort of enter into a media for equity partnership with just anybody. Can you tell me a little bit about how you chose the specific partners to engage with?
Sure. I mean, I think having TV as part of whatever media owner we're talking to, like, that's been key. Like, we know that TV works for us, so all the media for equity deals that we have, like, TV is the main part, or at least some part of it. Scale. So yeah, scale is an obvious one. So we do want, these broadcast deals are awareness play for us more than anything, really. We're like trying to get our brand awareness up. We'll keep our digital advertising on the whole time to try and like convert people and acquire them. But we do need whatever media for equity partner that we work with to have mass reach. So that's been super important. And then I think a lot of it is the chemistry between the two companies. And then finally the commercials, what kind of pricing we're talking about. And we know from like agencies that we work with in different markets whether or not we're getting a good deal. So yeah, those are the three elements, I suppose, like mass reach, good chemistry with the company, and the commercials just have to kind of work out.
Gotcha. And if we get into sort of the more nitty gritty day to day stuff, I mean, there's really a very clear alignment of incentives when you're doing this sort of deal, right? When you've given equity, it's very obvious that Times of India, if we want to run with that example, are going to be hoping for your success.
For sure.
So how do you think about optimization in a sort of a deal like that, and really measuring the success of your campaigns, changing them, targeting them, localizing them? How does that work?
Sure, yeah, and some of the deals are very different. So ITV is pretty straightforward. It's a TV deal, and we're just buying kind of media space with those guys on across their kind of their TV channel portfolio. Times of India has been quite a different one because they're very much a multi-channel media owner in that market. They do have TV channels, but obviously they're a very print-first business. Mm-hmm. They're also huge in the out-of-home space, like airports and things like that, and huge now in digital as well. So the way that we've approached that deal really is test and learn. I think the deal launched, or we started spending in January of this year, and we immediately went live with print because we can get creative assets made quickly, and we can book and run things quite fast. We've also been able to add QR codes to those assets, which give us some kind of return path on what's working and what's not. But at What Three Words, yeah, we do prefer to try and test something, like test quickly, get learnings fast, and then optimize on the fly. So the first few months of that deal have been kind of just dipping our toe in the water of the different channels that the Times of India have available to them, taking their guidance on the best way to utilize it. But sometimes we have to push back. Sometimes Times of India is saying, "Look, we really think you should go down this way," but we've got learnings already from things that we've done in other markets that we know that's not necessarily going to work for us. So it's about balance. But I think now, having been running with them for maybe 4 or 5 months, we're now making kind of bigger moves. Buying so like in June, for example, we're going big on airport media in India. We're now the marketing team have just come back from India filming our latest TV ads, so we're ready to go full on with TV now. Now that we know what messages are probably going to resonate best in that market. So yeah, it really was a case. It's difficult because you suddenly get given this big toolkit and toy box of it's a $10 million deal. So the temptation is to just go big, but I'm glad that we've kind of taken the 4 or 5 months just to take our time and now scale from here.
Well, it sounds like a pretty good approach to me, and certainly, we have this podcast to talk about out of the box marketing strategies. I think this is probably the most out of the box marketing strategy I've come across since I've started hosting the podcast. So, hats off to you for that one. I think that you touched on localization, and I'm not sure if this is relevant for all of your media deals. Certainly, this type of media deal, but it certainly seems like it, right? So, how do you think about localization, and what does it mean to What Three Words?
Localization is, yeah, it's really important on What Three Words. I mean, we're a words-based product when you think about us. And we work in over 50 languages. The app functions in over 50 languages. In fact, I think just last week or the week before, we launched in Catalan. So actually, when you get down to 51 or 52 languages, these are not necessarily mainstream languages anymore. So we recognize the importance of language in culture and how much people resonate with it, and appreciate that you go the extra mile and don't just do Spanish, you do Catalan as well. Or in India, you don't just do Hindi and English and maybe some of the other main official languages, but you go down, because I think they've got 12 official languages in India, but you go down all the way to the some of the more niche ones, or lesser spoken ones, I should say. But when you think about it, those lesser spoken ones in India are still a lot of people. So Odia, which I think is one of the smallest official languages of India, is spoken by, I think it's about 2.5 or 3% of the population, but that's 30 million people. The size of Belgium or something like that. It's a big it's a big market, and what we've the app works in those languages. So we thought, well, why not speak to people in our marketing in those languages as well? So on Facebook now, for example, a lot of our ads, we've started to run ads in Odia in India, and we've seen the cheapest cost per install out of any ads that we're running in that market. And we're not sure, but the hypothesis is that not many brands speak in that language on Facebook. They kind of do the top 5, but don't go down. So language is only one thing, but I guess it extends beyond that. I just mentioned that the marketing team have come back from India. We're not doing things just from London and getting people to do it for us out there. We do send our team out into the local markets to really experience what it's like over there, and make sure that what's being filmed is truly native and appropriate. So we don't typically take imagery from one market and just, I guess, translate it and stick it into another. We try and make sure we're always using local imagery, local kind of cultural references, and all underpinned by as many languages as possible.
I think you mentioned earlier retargeting, right? And I think that retargeting and remarketing is certainly a pretty hot button topic. And I guess as we sort of progress into this this new economic reality that we find ourselves in, it'll probably be an even bigger topic as 2022 marches on. Now, let's say that you've got your localized campaign. You've launched this this new ad campaign in India that you've just finished, and you've managed to get a whole bunch of installs. If they don't convert to retained users, how do you think about remarketing to them? What's the growth value for you guys in remarketing?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that we're working on like live right now. When I joined, the vast majority of our digital marketing was on acquisition, and we have branched out into, well, not branched out, but we've kind of upweighted percentages of spends into awareness and like you say, retargeting as well. And in certain markets, like we're more progressed than others on the acquisition piece. In the UK, our brand awareness is pushing 50% now. And like we've seen many millions of installs over the last few years. We know a lot of people know of us. We know a lot of people have installed the app. But we know a lot of people are not using us on a weekly or monthly basis, as I mentioned before. In fact, a lot of people have What Three Words because of the early days of that emergency services message, and they kind of installed it. But it's now on us to make sure that we go back to those users and say, hey guys, like we know that you know that we're going to help you in an emergency, but did you know that you can use us in all of these brands? Did you know that you might want to think about us in this particular like situation that you may find yourself in? So we have a lot of tools to do that. Some of them are like owned and operated, things like in-app notifications, push notifications, newsletter. So we're always talking to our existing users, but it's not easy to talk to lapsed users because they're not necessarily engaging with the app. So we use the tech stack that we have available to us to try and chop cohorts up and message them differently based on what they've done or haven't done within the app. And that's starting to yield results. We're able to see what it's costing us to drive people back into the app, and we compare that to the costs for acquiring a new user, and ultimately what a new user is going to do in a month's time versus what a reacquired user is going to do in a month's time. And yeah, like I said, the results are looking pretty positive. And we're continuing to divert like share of digital marketing spend into that space. But like I said, it's kind of different market by market. India, Japan, South Korea, these markets where we're a little bit newer and less well known, we're still very much an awareness and an acquisition play. But in markets where we've been around a bit longer, like UK and increasingly Germany, it's now shifting away from we're What Three Words, we're a 3 meter by 3 meter, we with 3 words and all that kind of stuff. It's less informative about like the core uses of the app and more about use cases and moments where you might want to consider using What Three Words. I mean, in fact, our latest TV ad in the UK is you could describe it as a retargeting ad. In as much as it's, I don't know if you've seen it, but it just focuses on the delivery message. We don't talk about the core functions of the app at all. We just portray a humorous scenario where a neighbor can't find their packages, and it turns out that the neighbor next door has been receiving them and is actually stealing them. So so we've just gone all in on delivery there, and just kind of signpost people to use What Three Words at the end of it. But it's really not like a hardcore acquisition campaign, and it's more akin to a digital remarketing campaign, even though it's on TV.
That's interesting because I do think of sort of CRM, if you will. I think of that as mostly an in-app activity, and you wouldn't shift sort of media spend to that sort of activity because really, users, you want them to be in the app, you want them to be engaged with whatever the in-app activity might be. But in the case of What Three Words, there really is a strong case for continuing to buy media, whether it's on TV or out of home or wherever it might be, because there's a strong acquisition part to that as well, which I guess you can tack on and really enjoy from both sides of that coin.
Sure. And I think, one of the reasons for that is, we don't monetize our users directly. There's no basket where you can buy things on What Three Words. So, that first interaction between a user and What Three Words, yeah, it's super important, but it's more important that they continue to use us in the long run, and that they're not just like a quick in and out, come in, buy something and leave. That's like we have to take these guys on the journey with us, and like I said, ultimately get towards 100 million monthly active users globally.
And when we're measuring success, we're talking about retention, we're talking about monthly active users. What do you guys use as a success metric?
Yeah, so we've got a few. I suppose the traditional ones that other apps would be familiar with are daily new users, daily active users, monthly active users. Yeah, sure, they're super important. But we look at other like unique to what three words type metrics as well. So more around engagement. What are people actually using the app for? You have to search for a three-word address, and when we see people that are searching for three-word addresses, we see that as the most kind of deep understanding of our service. So that's our North Star metric. How many searches, I guess, are happening either within our own platforms or even within partner sites as well. So we capture all of that. So when we see usage like that, that's kind of what we're really trying to aim towards: as many people using three-word addresses as possible. And it's been really encouraging over the last year to see the three-word address usage line going up at an even faster rate than the monthly active user line is going up. So what that shows is that our existing users and even new users that are coming in, they're more likely to really get us, and they're using three-word addresses on a more prevalent basis than they were a year ago.
Fantastic. That's good to hear. It's always nice to hear marketing efforts are going to plan, and that graph is going up and to the right.
Sure, and I think it's marketing, but it's also adoption in the wider world. So small businesses or anyone with a premises these days, they're becoming more aware of what three words and how important it might be to include a three-word address link on their contact page. For example, if you're a street food vendor in a park and you're trying to tell people like where you are, stick it on your contact page. If you're if you work out of I guess like a warehouse facility or something, and you've got multiple entrances and you're trying to tell people exactly how to get to you, stick your three-word address. And the more times that people see those links online, the more ingrained it becomes, and it's just more touch points and avenues to get into our ecosystem.
For sure. When you think about structuring your marketing team, because you have such sort of different deals that you have to do, both in the user acquisition space, if we're talking Google and Facebook, or whether it's sort of the broader media, whether it's media for equity, otherwise, how do you think about structuring that team? Do you have sort of multi-tool people, or do you really have separate teams for each of those activities?
That's a good question. So we have a marketing team here. It's actually a large marketing team. We do most of our creative in-house, certainly digitally. Most of it is done in-house. And then the marketing team also work like diligently on some of the owned and operated stuff that I mentioned before, things like the push notifications, the newsletters, and they have a very strong say in what happens on TV as well. Like obviously we use outside creative agencies, but we have like awesome creative directors internally as well who really help guide things. And we've recently won quite a few awards for some of the ads that we've made. So that marketing team really takes ownership of the brand and the messaging and how kind of all of our comms gels together. We've then got the growth team, and we implement digital performance media. That's one of our core functions. But we also have a say, I guess, in how those media for equity deals are being deployed. Like we mentioned the Times of India, where it's like a real multi-channel deal. And I think you mentioned like how do you unpick all that and measure ROI on all those different things and know what to dial up and dial down. So the growth team have quite a we're very close to that, and we have a separate data and analytics team that we work very closely with to help actually crunch all those things. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. The growth team, we deliver all the performance media, but we're also very close to the broadcast deals on an ROI basis. And I guess linking the more data side of the business to the marketing side of the business, we're kind of that connector, I guess.
Gotcha. Well, Greg, I think this has been a super interesting conversation. I've certainly learned a lot, and I think media for equity, like I say, is probably one of the more out of the box marketing ideas that I've seen in the recent past. I'd like to end by asking you the question I ask of all my guests, and I'm unfortunately going to have to take media for equity out of the pool of answers for this one. And that's, what is the most out of the box marketing you've seen or been a part of, as I say, other than media for equity?
Sure. So I've not been a part of it at all, and I've not even seen it yet. But I've been reading that eBay is the new sponsor of a show in the UK called Love Island, which I think is a really out of the box play on both sides, actually. So if you're not familiar with the show, Love Island is they stick a bunch of single people into a villa in Mallorca and kind of see how they get on, and they all couple up, and it's a very kind of trendy influencer type show. And I think it's become known in recent years for promoting fast fashion. Like most of the sponsors have been the fast fashion online brands, and if a product gets worn on that show, it often sells out very quickly from some of these retailers. And it's actually got a bit of a negative reputation for that, being associated for fast fashion. So I'm really interested to see that their latest sponsorship, they've sold it to eBay. And I hear that, some of the characters on the show will even be wearing used clothing lines, and they'll be directing people to find similar type clothes on eBay, because eBay's kind of trying to scale up its used or like secondhand vintage clothes arm as a big revenue driving tool for them. So I just thought that was a really out of the box thing to do from both sides, frankly. I'm sure ITV, eBay may not have even been the top bidder. I don't know, but I think it makes ITV come across pretty well, that they're trying to shift away and be more conscientious about the things that they're promoting on their channels. And then for eBay, just a really cool way to get in front of like a young audience and show people that, hey, you don't have to buy everything new and cheap from online retailers. You can get high quality high quality clothes like vintage from eBay. And we're not just about kind of, I don't know, secondhand gym equipment and stuff like that.
Love it. That's a great example. Well, Greg, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an enlightening conversation.